horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, fancied in the morning, continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's not.
It's heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
And a huge welcome to the Barsters Inquiry Sunday Sermon. We've got a cracking show for you in store tonight, and joining me as always to go through and chew the fat is a Mr. John Lang and a Mr. Lorne Malvo Chris. Good evening, chaps.
Good evening.
Evening, everybody.
Yes, corker of a show tonight, and National Hunt fans were treated to some good fare, it can be said, yesterday, and it made it up more interesting for me because Blogger must have been certain to do his bollocks in John yesterday. Had to have done.
Well, there was nothing in his price range one, was there? And we beat him to the punch there, advising 900 quid at 3's on to keep the 80 man.
Yeah, we did. Absolutely sterling tipping from John there. A 9 for 3, then go to bed for the afternoon, and you can sleep nice and tight and warm as well, being the privilege. Okay, we'll go through Saturday's racing review, John, and then just a little race today we'll have a mention on as well. Going back to Cheltenham, we started off with a Triumph Hurdle trial. I don't think we saw a Triumph Hurdle winner in this.
No, I'd agree with you entirely. I'm finding these Triumph Hurdle trials that seem to crop up at every Saturday Cheltenham making quite boring, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of the same calibre of horse that's turning up for them, and there's none of them get the blood pumping for the big one in March, do they?
No, it tends not to be. It always tends to be a Wicked Willie horse or something that pops up, over there from Ireland. But I mean, the Baby Joseph obviously won the race with Comfort Zone. Him himself, he's sort of tailor-made for a Triumph in running style, in that he would enjoy a really strong pace to run at in a Triumph, and his finishing kick, I think gives him a squeak, but I'd be surprised if there's something better. Paddy Brennan, I mean, he must be 76 years old now, and he took it up on scriptwriter, and for me, he got there far too soon, because this is an horse, as we know, that has one sort of burst of speed, turn of foot, then pulls itself up. So to me, that if you back scriptwriter on Saturday, I think you're a little bit unlucky, because I think if Paddy had just waited that little bit longer, I think scriptwriter would have won the race.
Tricky up that hill, though, isn't it, to be fair?
It is. I mean,
you can hang on and they can empty out on you. I mean, I think that's why everybody mentions your fuss of Frankham's ride on Sea Pigeon that time when he hung on and hung on.
Yeah.
It's an extremely skillful thing to ride a proper waiting race round there, because you're always conscious of the fact you've got to get up the hill, aren't you?
Yes.
I think you've been a little bit harsh on Pants there.
No, fuck him. Right, 12:10, the time form novices handicap chase. Yeah, Stage Star ended up having the run of the race on the inside. It's as if everyone else just thought, we'll just let you lead. And Stage Star, although impressive and never looked like getting beat, I thought just he was completely left alone on the front end. And some jockeys sometimes, I don't understand why they do this. Why, Fire Dancer was sort of up there, but nothing was really. Charlie Deutsch wasn't really pushing it.
They're all frightened to get bollocked on this show for going too early.
Yeah. Fair point, John.
That's what's caused that.
Touche from Mr. Lang. And Stage Star had another race, I felt, and there's an eye catcher in here, John. This is why I brought this race up, because I felt there's an horse that we need to be looking at closely, and it was the fourth horse, Panic Attack. This mare didn't jump well at all and belted one down the back, which would have probably stopped most mares from trying, because you know what mares are like if things aren't going well. and this mare stayed on really strongly in the closing stages and nearly nabbed third. And I thought it was an interesting run. I thought there's a lot more to come from her. because she hadn't jumped as bad as that in a previous chase starts. And what's interesting is she's running an EBF Mares Chase qualifier earlier on, which she won. That takes place, or the final of that is 20th of April at Cheltenham. So I think Panic Attack, yes, has done the perfect trial there. I reckon that's her Everest this season. I think that the final of that Mares Series Chase, I think he's a race. So 20th of April, folks, get it in your notebooks for Panic Attack. Any of you on that race, John? Stage stars?
Panic Attack ran a really eye-catching race, I thought. You wouldn't worry about her turning up at the Fez and leaving the April race behind there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm only guessing what connections they're doing, but they've certainly given themselves options by running in a chase qualifier, because it's quite a valuable, it's 45 grand added final. So, and they're not usually that competitive because everything's been laid out for the Fez. So, so I think she's definitely one to look out for. We'll leave the cross country. That's for real, that's for Hurray Henry stood in the middle. And Albert Bartlett Clarence House Chase, John, an absolute turn up. Apparently Ben Keith was laying hundreds of thousands of pounds on Energumene, and he'll be dining well this weekend. But Editor De Guy, surprise winner, John?
Well, he wasn't really. He sort of got left alone on the front end. He's maybe thick end of a stone behind these ink ratings, but I mean, if you leave him alone and you have to catch him up that hill, so these things can happen. I mean, Edward Stone must have gone short odds, I would have thought.
101, I think.
There we go. I think the effort of getting to Editor De Geet just found him out. You'd think that Editor De Geet in the champion chase wouldn't have things all his own way. They'd probably go a bit quicker, and Edward Stone would probably beat him in that, I would have thought.
No, I mean, Editor De Geet, John's been interesting since they stopped it at Cheltenham on reappearance when they held it up. Dirty Gary Moore held it up at Cheltenham for the 2 mile handicap. Comes out and slams Newbie Negra by 13, making all, and then goes back to making all again yesterday. But it was interesting to see Alan King after the race. He was absolutely beaming. He had nothing but good things to say about Edward Stone's run, because he said he'll come on for that because he needed another run to get another run into him, and he just said you'll see a different Edward Stone at Cheltenham. He was like adamant that was, he wasn't, as if he wasn't expecting to win at all. That's the impression I got from Alan King, because he was absolutely beaming after the race, which normally on a 5-2 second favourite with Energumene bombing out, that wouldn't be my reaction if I owned or trained the second favourite. But it was a big effort, I thought, from Edward Stone to get from where he was to try and knock off Editor De Geet, and I think he just flattened out near the line.
Yeah.
As if to say maybe he wasn't cherry ripe. So I believe King Kong there. What do you make to Energumene then?
Well, the senses are the wrong colour or something, aren't they?
I mean, this is a fantastic subject, isn't it? I mean, Mullins has gone full Hendo, with an absolute ridiculous statement. I mean, what is this nonsense? Ruby Walsh, I think, an AP said about it. Said that it's nonsense having white coloured fences. How do these lads know? Right, the only evidence you could garner is by asking the horse. What, painting them white? I mean, does it? I don't see how.
There was a study conducted a few years ago, right? What colours are particularly horse friendly?
Yeah.
The biggest thing that they found was that horses, rather like humans, struggle to differentiate between red and green. But white did come up as one of the colours that horses sometimes back off.
Really?
And yellow.
Interesting.
To what extent this study was, I don't know. I only quickly scanned Reddit. It was on the basis of the comments were after Energumene ran, and I thought, I wonder if there's anything been done about this, whether horses prefer certain colours, and I typed it into Google and it came up. There's been 1 or 2 studies into the subject, and I'm a little bit surprised if they were given that sort of study credence, that the wings of fences are white and things like that, I mean. You're going to he's backing off because I see a blob of white either side of the fence. I don't know. I don't entirely blow his comment out the water anyway. If that's new to the horse, I'm not going to ridicule it at this stage.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there. I mean, it used to be orange, but it was white before they turned it orange back in the day.
Yeah.
So they've gone what in UK they've gone white, then orange, then back to white.
Yeah.
So look, like you said, are we qualified to probably offer a better opinion? Probably not. But to me, it sounds a bit sour grapey to me. Geez, I mean, you can blame some things, but I'm not so sure. I don't know. I ain't got a solid opinion either way.
In there, remains a thoroughly dislikable champion chaser, isn't he? Because he doesn't really run however you want him to at any point.
Well, I mean,
shit, getting right by these two.
I mean, that's the thing though. The Shishkin race was incredibly hard. As he sort of not been the same since that, because the horses he's beat really, he won the champion chase.
Yeah.
But Fun and Boo Sivilla was second in that, rated 159. So what's he actually beaten in last season's champion chase? So I look, there's questions there. I can see that.
Would 2 mile chasers make me shit?
Yeah, in a nutshell. I don't. We haven't got a vintage. We haven't got anything vintage at the moment. Obviously, Popeye's stepping Shishkin up in trip, but he might not do after seeing that. We don't know. But it's one of those, really, isn't it? We seem to be a bit like the Stayers Hurdle division.
Yeah, the 2 mile chasers. It's all a bit so what, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we seem to be not bad at sort of like 2 mile hurdlers, but we're struggling for top quality animals. I would think. I mean, Edwardstone's a good horse. He's a very good horse. Is he a great horse? No, he's not. He's a good, honest 2 mile chaser that basically runs a race more often than not, and I don't think you can knock him, but he's not great. So. It's not nothing's floating my boat anyway at the moment. So we go to the Paddy Power handicap chase. Il Ridotto, I got completely wrong because I said on the pod I just thought a strongly run 2 miles is sort of what he wants, but he managed to even outstay the second in the end Fugitive. So I doffed my cap. I was wrong. Thoughts on that race, John?
Well, again, I mean it's not really what you call a festival point, because I mean the two that ran all right, they're both going to go up. They won't be winning at the festival, will they?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Fugitive's a nice horse. Travels well. I'm presuming. I'm presuming it's the handicap for Fugitive and so on and so on. And I don't know. I don't know what running plans are. To be honest, with a Cheltenham entry system these days and horses having 4 and 5 entries, it's like the anti-purse market. It's rubbish now. They've gone running no bet because it's very hard to get any sort of value, isn't it?
I thought Caribbean Boy was very gloomy after the wind up as well. I thought that would look one to really avoid. He was in a terrible state yesterday in that race. I don't think the wind up's done him any good at all.
No, possibly not coming back. So Paddy Power Cotswold Chase, possibly a surprise result for some. The Gershon's sort of twin equine wanker decided to put the spoke up us, John. But it was pleasant viewing for Lucinda Russell, who lost her father this week. And the horse has proven that despite the quirks, he's certainly got a really, really good engine.
Well, I think if you're looking at that race beforehand, probably the 2 people you'd have liked to see fight it out 40,000.
Yes.
That said, I mean, he did do his usual and jump one of them sideways, didn't he? Down the back, second time. I just couldn't have him on my mind for a Gold Cup because, I mean, there'll be more goes wrong in a Gold Cup, you guarantee. That was a hoist and you're getting away with it, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. What did you make of the third horse, Noble Yates?
Well, it'd be cheap prices on and staying on like buggery up the hill in the Gold Cup, wasn't it?
Like Davis says that he thinks that it'll suit, but I've read other good judges that said it won't on better ground in March. If it is better ground, it wouldn't have the pace during the race.
I could see him in trouble at the top of the hill, and probably in more trouble at the bottom of it.
And exactly, a Protectorate as well looked at the horse again. That to me, there's something wrong with the wind, because obviously it's had a wind up. This is the second run after the wind up. It was absolutely cantering. Then it kind of just as if it couldn't breathe, and then it's obviously found it's had a gulp of air, and it's kept on. It's kept on again close home. So to me, I think that's probably wind.
And Dosart should have ran at Doncaster.
Yeah, again, an idiot. Girl, Popeye. So there we go. So that's what we think there. None of us are beating our chests for any sort of Cheltenham bets on anything, as we didn't expect to. The Cleve Hurdle highlighted the very, very weak hand that the British have in terms of quality staying hurdlers, as Paisley Park certainly showed his age in the race. Dashel Drasher just is what he is. Again, he's 10. Nothing. And a horse officially rated 136, John, from the French provinces, giving them a good caning.
To be fair, the frog could be called the winner along with it out, couldn't he, really?
Cantering. Johnny Shan, he was arse in the air, not moving.
The trouble is, though, if you plunge on those tapes in running, you suddenly find out that that's the French jockey all in. You don't get any more movement when it gets to the business end of the race.
Do you remember when you used to ride Nupsala? Adam Condra. Now he was that's him typified. He'd be there absolutely, and like when he had to start pushing it, he looked like a £10 claimer, He was all over the place. But yeah, it's interesting in some French jockeys.
Sit very late, these French lads, but when the blood and guts is flying, it gets a bit iffy, doesn't it?
It does indeed. 3:35 to finish Saturday off, really, for what we're talking about. I tipped the winner, Rock My Way on Friday. Sure,
I was delighted.
Yes. Did you have a decent bet on Rock My Way, John?
I had a very small bet on Rock My Way, but I was delighted for the fact that my anti-post punt remains alive now.
Absolutely. That the winner that beat Rock My Way last time of Nigel Twiston-Davies's, I'd love to see the heavens open and soft ground at the Fez, because I think that would be a live contender if that was the case.
Yeah.
Because good ground's not his thing, I don't think, for the Twister runner.
Very true, yeah. I mean, the Twiston-Davies horse turns up in the same sort of form, shall we say.
Yeah.
I think he'd be on the verge of placing anyway in the race.
I think that's what I want, soft ground, and then Twisters, I think, in the Ballymore, I think, has got a squeak at a big price of running some sort of race.
I'm kind of hopeful now, whereas I was a bit nonplussed after the win, because I didn't know what the second was like, and I thought, oh my Christ, done it in there, but no, yeah, you'd have to give the horse a bit of a shout at the minute.
Indeed. Well, we've all been caught. He's entered in the Ballymore and the Albert Bartlett. So you're wondering, if it's soft ground, they'd probably go Ballymore. If it's good ground, they'd probably go Albert Bartlett. You'd think, the 3 miler.
Yeah.
That's what I'd have thought. But anyway, so there we go. That sums up Saturday's fair, and we move on to today. We had Bob Bollinger turn out again, John, and I think people were expecting to see Bob Bollinger bounce back in some shape or form in the Limestone Lad Hurdle. However, you for a long time have had other ideas about this horse.
Well, it gives me no pleasure the fact that he's looking gone at the game completely now. I mean, he's not moved right to me since the novice chase at Cheltenham. I did think even the race he won before Cheltenham was a bit of a danger sign as well. I didn't think he moved great that day. But now he's a sorry sight, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just like you said. You pointed out, that physically you thought he'd gone wrong, and they've never got him back. And I think now we're at the stage where I don't know what you'd do. What you said you'd retire him, wouldn't you?
Well, I would, yeah. I mean, say any benefit in running him in these races. He's getting dictated now. I mean, it's just a sorry business, isn't it? Really.
Indeed. So yeah, poor Bob Bollinger fans. I think it's over for old Bob. Okay, that concludes the weekend review. Just like to, before we go on to the next section of the show, Sean Quinlan did an interview today, and it was quite sad, John, that after he's rode a winner, the fact that the BHA with the new whip rules, etc., they wasn't happy with the with the ride he got, and had the new rules been sort of put in place, he would have got a 51-day suspension.
Honestly, I don't know what to make of this. I mean, they're just making such a rod for their own backs, aren't they? I mean, there's going to be terrible trouble over it if they don't sort this out. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's Chris. What? I mean, where do we all stand on the whip situation?
So I don't think there's any clarity, is it? That's the problem. There's no clarity at all. And of course, when you start to pander to external forces or external pressure groups, ultimately it's the thin end of the wedge. It can only get worse. And I think, the lack of leadership from those at the top of racing, they need to draw a line somewhere and say, these are the rules. We're not going to move any further forward or backwards from that, because at the minute, no one seems to know what those rules are. Certainly punters don't. If you stopped any punter or asked them in a betting shop what are the new whip rules, they wouldn't have a clue. And that's got to be bad, isn't it?
I mean, this is the thing about sort of. I mean, who are we pandering to? Because I've never seen many punters complaining about the whip rules. There are some. I know some people that listen to this show would prefer no whips, believe it or not. But as a rule of thumb, in general, no, a punter wants a jockey to give the horse the best ride he can without having to worry about having a 2-month holiday bestowed upon him. So this sort of comes on to the sort of the next topic in terms like gambling's a dirty word. Yeah. And betting's a dirty word, and showing a horse the persuader, as we call it now, not the whip, but the persuader, is now frowned upon.
The pro cush.
The pro cush. Yeah. This is the problem, that once we've started going down this route, all we're going to have to do is more measures, because as we've seen with society over the last sort of 20 years, we've progressed from no one gives a shit to now all of a sudden we give a shit. And we give a shit about the national fences. They're too big. They're too dangerous. Horses are dying. So we did something about it.
It's part of life, isn't it? Everything dies in the end. So when you try and infantilize society and try and reduce all elements of risk, but by inference you reduce people's personal freedom, right? But by doing that, and you dictate to people, and that's the problem. The antis, it's never going to be enough. There's no end game for these people other than the complete abolition of sport involving horses, gambling, whatever. So by placating them, you're not. So all you're doing is buying yourself a bit of time until the next request from the anti. That's the problem, because it's never going to be enough, is it?
Well, that's where I'm at, Chris, because as we know, words that were even using 5 years ago are considered offensive to use them now. So when is the barrier finally put up to say, no, we're not interested in this? I mean, Spain still have bullfighting. My point is that once you start giving them an inch, they will take a yard over time. It's the old saying. And, you give someone who should take a yard. And for me, this is where racing, like you highlighted, if someone stands up to this and says, no, we're not doing it. We don't see a problem. There's no horses aren't coming back marked or cut or from using the persuader. There's absolutely no point in this at all, because all it's doing, it's showing that credibility of the sport's gone down, because punters then get frustrated when the jockey comes back and said, well, if I could have given it another 2 smacks, it'd have won, because he's lazy.
By constantly pandering to people whose agenda is to not reduce harm, it's to eliminate the sport. These are prohibitionists. We've seen it with the anti-gambling lobby. They aren't interested in reducing social harm. They're interested in eliminating gambling. So by pandering to these people, you are acknowledging de facto that there is a problem. Because if you don't acknowledge there is a problem, why would you constantly change the rules of the game and constantly reduce the amount of taps that a horse can get? The administration of racing is saying, yeah, you're right, there is a problem, so we're going to make it even safer. And that's the difficulty, because they'll come back in 3 or 4 months' time and say, look, we think you need to change it again, and they'll roll over. So the only way to stop it is for somebody to say, no, we're not going to do it. What are you going to do? And that's the point. What are they going to do? If the leaders of racing say, well, no, we're not going to change anything more now. No, we're not going to reduce the height of fences. No, we're not going to change anything about racing. What are they going to do?
Yeah. I mean, John, this is a case of like the BHA doing this, and they're not really taking a leaf out of Ireland's book, where racing, as we've said on the past on this show, is classed as agriculture. It's a sport and leisure in this country. So when they class it as agriculture, it's a different thing altogether, because it's not like an actual leisure industry that can be attacked. And we saw this week the crowds for the midweek meeting at Gowran for the Thyestes. It was immense. It was like I think it was Tucker Noyce that said, Rue, the Albion bookmaker. He said it was like watching crowds in the UK 15 to 20 years ago on midweek racing. Full packed, everyone enjoying a day out, and because it's a big midweek meeting for Ireland, and you can see that Ireland aren't embracing that gambling's a dirty word, because it's obviously not over there, because everyone's just still cracking on.
Although I would say, sorry to cut across, one of our listeners did DM me earlier in the week and said that our slightly rose-tinted view of the Irish situation, in a year or two, it could change, because he feels that there is a growing anti-gambling sentiment in Ireland, and he feels that the affordability checks and the general kind of anti-punting and anti-horse racing lobby is gathering steam over there. So whilst the situation is much better over there now than it is in the UK, he's not hugely optimistic that will always be the case.
No, John, you're gonna chime in.
Well, pretty much what Chris was saying there. It's not a gimme that Ireland's just going to carry on in this unfettered way, is it? The evils of wokeness, for want of a better word, I hate using that term because nobody really knows what it is.
No.
It's spreading far and wide, isn't it? And you couldn't guarantee that in 5 years' time Ireland won't be in the same mess that we're in, as regards welfare issues and painting themselves into a corner like we have. I think the BHA are quite comfortable with this, because at least it's something that they can do, and it makes it look like they're doing something actually running the sport, but they really aren't helping matters, are they?
No. And regarding affordability, Mr. D. Keogh has been on, and he said, opinion on the Racing Post starting to give a fuck about affordability checks. Is it too late, or better late than never? Chaps, I'm thinking here the ship sort of sailed on this, and it's going to be interesting times.
Better than never. You wouldn't have wanted nothing to have been said, but it's quite laughable how these great thinkers like Mr. Gosden, who was lauded to the skies, has finally piped up and spotted there might be a problem and what have you. But in the main, it is too little too late. They should have been vociferously defending the sport and the way it is funded, but nobody seemed to realise how it was funded until 2 weeks ago.
But the BHA are sitting down with all stakeholders on this, which are mainly the
alarm bells ringing straight away, shouldn't it? Because they'll sit down several times, won't achieve a consensus, and probably won't end up doing anything.
No, it certainly is worrying times. I genuinely think, despite the gambling minister Paul Scully coming out with sort of favourable words this week in terms of that people should be left alone to choose how they want to spend their money rather than these checks. But then in the next sort of breath, sort of said, well, checks sort of have to take place to help those that need help. So it's kind of a mixed bag of a statement, really. And I can see this being very wishy-washy. And if they leave it to the Gambling Commission to do this and to make these decisions at what bar we're setting for affordability, I think we could be in a lot of trouble. The game could be in an immense amount of trouble.
It wouldn't be the smartest move from a government that's desperate for growth in the economy either, would it?
You can't, as you know, you can't grow with sort of cutbacks and prohibition. It's just common sense. And this is what worries me, that if that's going to happen. But you can see the wider audience, going back to the pandering, Chris and John, the Martin Lewis poll that was out this week. I was like in horror at the poll. And I know that like a lot of Martin Lewis's followers definitely not interested in racing, probably. But I mean, this was a chap that you know, he's offering money saving advice. And at one time, he was telling people to go on Betfair and take the free bet offers back in the day, a long time back in the, I remember him saying, oh, sign up for Betfair, you'll get a free £200 worth of bets. You have to put £50 in, have your bets, withdraw take the free bets and withdraw any winnings you've got after it. He was advocating that. Now he started these gambling, sort of anti-gambling polls where he said, should gambling adverts be banned? And I was in shock when it was 84% of people that either partook in gambling or didn't partake in gambling said that gambling adverts should be banned. Only 16% said that they should remain. And that's just left me horrified. If that's the wider view of gambling, the whole shebang's fucked, isn't it?
But yeah, it is. His community, though, it's a community. He runs a cult of coupon cutters, right? People that will drive fucking 200 miles to save 2p a litre on diesel, no regard for the value of their time, right? So it is a cult, right? And he's done extremely well. You know, he's a journalist first and foremost. He's made a lot of money. He found a niche in terms of offering, common sense advice and money saving advice, when it was hot and he sold out. But the people that follow him are coupon cutters. They are zero risk people. So it doesn't surprise me that his community are very, vociferous in support of, banning gambling. They're full. I tell you, if you ever go onto his community, it's all about sharing competitions where, free entry where you can win something. So these people aren't risk takers. So it doesn't surprise me that his followers are all anti-risk because that's what they're there to try and chisel 2 or 3p out of offers. They'll drive to Asda because it's a ton of salt is a penny cheaper. Let's go and get it. They're the sort of people that follow him. But look, he's on a bandwagon, isn't he? Gambling's not fashionable, so let's jump on it.
John,
I agree with every word that Chris said there, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. I mean, it's possibly not one to sort of go to bed with in terms of a poll, but I was still shocked at the sort of like end figures. If it had been 70-30 or even 65-35, I'd have probably said, well, yeah, it's a Martin Lewis poll. But with it being 84-16, I was it's kind of akin to like cigarette advertising when they banned that.
What does that tell you about what we've been saying the last year about how effective the anti-gambling PR machine has been and how utterly ineffective pro-responsible gambling has been in standing up to these people? We talked about the TV programs where Shilton and his missus are on and boo-hoo, look, I've done my nuts for the last 5 years and I've written a book and I'm head of a Quango. These messages are never opposed. And so if you get an unremitting diet of all gambling's bad, all gamblers are degenerates, and then you take a poll at the end of it, most people will say, oh, yeah, it must be. Because that's the only message they ever receive is that gambling has ruined a person's life. So that it actually doesn't surprise me as much as it does you, because I think that's the inevitable consequence of a complete diet of anti-gambling rhetoric. So
yeah. No, it's a fair point. I mean, we've got Motazed fighting for us at the moment, which is it's a bit Vauxhall Conference. But yeah, in terms of that, then regards to these measures that are brought in or going to be brought in at some point, which I think it's inevitable, some form of checks are going to be brought in. Referring to a friend of mine that is a really good lad. He doesn't bet big, but he's very sensible. So he might deposit £25 or £50 for his Saturday wages, or to have a lucky 15, whatever. When it comes to big meetings like York Ebor meeting Cheltenham, he might put in, say, £300 because that'll last him the whole week if you get it. You know, that's his budget. Now, Bet365 actually gave him the full affordability check last year because he deposited £300 for the 4-day York Ebor meeting. Now, because you normally deposit, the software had picked it up. These are the flaws. These are normal people, normal gamblers that's probably took the week off work, put the £300 in to play York for the week, and they've given him your account suspended. This is like shit because the software says so. We've become software oriented. Computer says no, like banking. You know, it's you know, it used to be you sit down in front of your bank managers to get a loan. You know, you had to explain to him what you wanted it for, and you know, give him the spiel. And now it's just all computerized. And this is the problem. The computer might be right a lot of the time, but some of the time, unfortunately, people are getting caught in the net with this scandalous, you know, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to think racing is in this position. I can't believe it. It's a massive shock to my system anyway. Anyway, we'll move on. Nepotism in racing, chaps. I mean, this is quite funny, isn't it? I mean, you know, you look through racing as a sport, and I mean, racing, would you say, is the biggest sport out of them all for nepotism?
Yes.
No, not just ask Ollie Bell, Claire Balding, Adele Mulrennan, Francesca Kumani, Megan Nichols. There's no nepotism. What are you on?
I mean, this is the thing. I think when it comes to pundits and things like that, I know a lot of sports do it, but usually in other sports, you do get a lot of good pundits that actually do know what they're talking about. But because they're a certain name, or they're the son or daughter of X or Y, they then get the plum job at the wherever, and it's painful to watch. You know, how can you sit there as a TV executive and say, right, yeah, we're going to employ such and such person because they used to, you know, like we're a jockey in the saddle. It just doesn't make any sense. You know, like there's lots of talented people out there that possibly don't get jobs, you know, that, you know, like they probably should be getting because a racing sort of insular community, if you like.
Well, this is true. But here's a counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
We like counterpoints. You
know? We do. We don't like to agree all the time.
Would Ruby Walsh have made it if he wasn't Ted Walsh's son?
I think he would because he actually. I mean, even before he went on as a pundit when he was riding, I saw him on some Irish show absolutely take apart John McCreary, which was quite funny. And he was enjoyable. And I thought this is a man that knows his stuff, kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't. I don't think he would have made it. Yes, I mean, I don't disagree with anything about his talent as a pundit. By being a jockey and the son of a very famous Irish trainer who's also a sort of a media personality, he would not have been afforded the opportunity to display his talent.
You would not think it's hampered him, would you, like?
No, absolutely. It put him in the position whereby he could showcase his talent and demonstrate that he was a good pundit. But if he was Ruby Walsh from somewhere from an unconnected industry outside of racing that just happened to have a passion for it and knowledge, he wouldn't have got the opportunity. He would not have got in front of the people that could make that career for him. So I think he is a product of the fact that he's the son of a famous trainer and obviously an exceptional jockey.
Rumour mill now. ARC race courses are.
I hope we're not going to have another bet on this because I'm
going to say I think you're going to give me a 50, John.
Well, it's a marathon, not a sprint, though.
No. I've had it confirmed off a separate source this week. Said you can send me a DM. Said you can collect your 50 off, John. And I noticed on Saturday Lydia was on course. Where was Mellish? In the studio. Got relegated to the studio. Did Mellish? Lids.
He's knocking on a bit. He don't want to be out in the cold weather.
He waits till it warms up. He'll be up there.
Absolutely. Anyway, on to the rumour mill news this week. ARC race courses apparently are bleating behind the scenes to certain people of influence that they are fed up of the drone coverage in running pictures that's going around for racing. Obviously, if you're not in running play or you don't know what's going off, basically groups of people are flying drones to a track and sending back fast pictures to customers that are paying roughly, I believe, about £30 a day to watch them and make money, hopefully, back in when they see the horse quicker than racing TV and at the races. So that's how it works. However, I'm a bit lost for words on this. Why they're even bothered about this, and why they're not doing something more proactive? Because let's say a customer's paying £30 a day, chaps, to watch the racing picks faster. What's that per month? That's £900 a month, is it? Isn't it? Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't ARC say put the drones out of business, offer a fast streaming service for £250 a month? I'll guarantee ARC now. And if I don't, they give me 50 grand if I'm right, and I'll give them 100 grand if I'm wrong, and I'll pay them off over 20 years. But yeah. But my bet is, if you don't get a minimum of 1,000 subscribers worldwide at £250 a month, bearing in mind lots of expats that bet on racing stuff, right? So what does that do, right? So work that out. 250 grand a month. Hello, McFly. It's £3 million a year in revenue for ARC, right? Are they stupid? Yes. So now you've got the drone problem, which, by the way, is not breaking the laws as it stands. If you fly a drone, as long as you don't fly on the land of the owner, i.e. the race course, and you fly it just off the land, you're allowed to be there. There's no laws to say you can't do that. So they've got a leg to stand on. So instead of bleating about it, ARC, simply get some staff that know what they're actually doing to make money in racing, and exploit it. Put them out of business. Put the drone operators out of business, and take all the cash for yourself, so everyone can play in running. Everyone's happy. Win-win. Anyway, so I thought I'd get that out.
Bigger bets with ARC, it makes 50 quid look like small better.
Well, it's just, it is bizarre. But yeah, right, moving on. I think we're short of topics now, so we're going to take some questions. I think it's right time to do so. Right, get through them. Going yesterday, Neil Tolson's been on. He said, was the going soft yesterday? I thought it was fairly accurate, but it wasn't tacky. I thought it was soft, good to soft in places. That was my sort of feeling. I don't know what he's inferring, if he thinks it was like faster than soft or worse than soft. I'm not too sure. John, any thoughts?
I thought it looked like they'd left plenty of grass on, and it looked quite stamina sapping at the end of the race. They sort of hadn't really had a good dig at the times yet to form a hard and sharp opinion, but I always think this time of year they lay plenty of grass on anyway.
Yeah, Times said what I said. That's what I tend to follow. So soft, good to soft in places probably was about right, I reckon. But I don't know what if Neil thinks it was like maybe riding a bit quicker. I don't know. There were some times that we like getting closer to standard, but bearing in mind this sort of 160 horses, they're probably going to do that. I mean, the festival's always, even when they said the festival's good to soft, they run probably at standard or maybe slightly quicker than standard. So you're going to expect that off quality horses to get to standard. Okay, moving on. Funny one now from Andy Humphrey. Hypothetically, which one of the bar stewards would you trust to pour your Guinness at Cheltenham after their new super-duper self-service invention? £7 a pint to pull your own pint, he says. So which bar steward would get the job for pulling pints, John?
Most of us have got the fucking shakes, haven't we? So...
I'd be no good, because I'd be just if I were left to serve, I could never run a pub. I'd be.
Your head would hang around us, wouldn't it?
I can pull a pint of Guinness, actually. I've even done, well, it didn't look much like a shamrock, but I did manage to do a bit of a squiggle on the top of a few pints of Guinness.
Like a swastika.
Yeah, that was probably it. I have had it. I could probably get away with it, I think.
No. I'd nominate you, actually. I think you'd be good, because I know you're partial to odd drink, but you won't sup it all like I would, and and it's So yeah, I'd go for John as well. Fun question. Right, next fun question is from Robert Potts, and Nick the Nipper's mentioned this also. Can you discuss the pressing question of who the fuck cuts Richie's hair?
Wow. I don't know I don't think anybody cuts it. Doesn't he fight with kangaroos or something and they tear it out from the ropes?
I was going to say, John, do you think he's a fan of Mick the Miller?
Well, it's a coach, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. He was.
You probably seen him doing the noddy joke in stand-up once and thought, that's the look I'm after.
Yeah. Or Terry Nutkins, you remember him?
Ah, yeah.
Terry Nutkins, Animal Magic.
Bit his finger off or something, wasn't it? Yeah. Terry Nutkins.
Yeah. Terry Nutkins, a blast from the past. Yeah.
Exciting ourselves there.
Was it Johnny Morris?
Yeah.
The Animal Magic. Oh, I used to love that show.
You know what? A little bit of trivia for you. His daughter, Johnny Morris, got nicked for drug smuggling years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it? It's so weird.
Yeah. There you go. Anyway.
Probably had it stuck up a panda's ass or something.
I don't think Jay Morris is involved in said conspiracy, but you never know.
Yeah. When she got
as well, someone told me he's horrible fucker, Johnny Morris.
All right. And when she got arrested, John, she just probably said, "Then that's Animal Magic."
Yeah, Debbie McGee, that wasn't it? No, that's magic. Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
mad. Yeah. So, looking next question. Harry T says Gary Moore juicing or not? I'd say definitely not. I've never associated Gary Moore's yard with any kind of carrots, really. For a simple reason, I think they're masters of their craft in placing them extremely well. So I'll tell you, if you want a Gary Moore, wait till they have runners at Fontwell and Plumpton and Lingfield, Sandown. He likes the southeast corner, does Gal, to lay them out. Usually when they're not off, he's sending up to Doncaster and places like that for another spin. And they like the local track so they can all turn out in force like the mafia and blast the price.
Blinders, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like peak. Yeah, so they're awesome at sort of like getting £10 off, 4 or 5 spins in a handicap, and then saying, "Here we go, we come to Fontwell and we have the lot on." So that's the
only juice with them would be fucking eel juice, won't it?
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah. But no, they're a warm outfit. They don't get it right all the time, but they're pretty decent, aren't they?
I mean, they're what's known as I would call them, Chris, as an old-fashioned punting yard.
Yeah.
It literally is just like that. It's like old school. Everything's done old school. Like we'll have 3 runs with this. We'll get it handicapped. Then we'll have another 3 to get another 10 off, and then we'll turn up at Plumpton in some shithole race, and it'll be 6s into 7 or 4, and bang. That's the Gary Moore style, and
the mud will be flying, and your man will be beating 7 tons of shit out of it, and he'll win half a length, and it won't be cited again for another season, will it?
For sure. And some interesting final topic before we finish the show. G Hart has been on regarding non-triers and stuff. This is the thing. It's like, are the stewards doing enough for non-triers? And there was an example this week with Engelbert at Newcastle. If anyone didn't see it, I suggest you go watch the video.
Shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, it was ridden by Theodore Ladd. 100%, it wasn't there to win. It wasn't there to place. Looking at the ride, and the only impressive part about it, that the owners group that owned it, they obviously didn't touch the exchange. So they obviously didn't tell the members that, no, not today, because that would have been 38 if they'd have said, no, not today. So they obviously didn't tell the members, or the whoever's in the horse. Impressive from the owners group, though. I'm not defending them, what they've done. I'm just saying it's impressive that it was a very well backed 5-2 chance. Yeah. So the themselves, whoever the owners group are, and I actually don't know, I've not done research who they are that run it, but they stayed away from the exchanges. So credit to them for that, because we all know everyone has a spin, but I'm not sure it's that ethical doing it with a 5-2 shot. I think if I was the owner and I saw my horse at 5-2 and I'm thinking, I think we'd probably best try with this, else it'll look bad, which it did. And that's, no one would have said much if that had been 40s or 50s, because no one would notice. That's why we do a Jimmy Lindley. We'd have picked out a 50s shot that had done that. No one's saying a thing after the race. But because it was 5-2, and obviously people are backing it, there was absolute uproar on social media. And the stewards had them in, and Perplexing just noted the comments and took no action. Now, to me, that's terrible judgment from the stewards, John.
Well,
what was the explanation?
What's the race?
Yeah.
What did they say to the stewards? Do we know? What was the explanation given?
It was basically that just a part, the usual pile of shit that he was told to settle the horse, and they'd probably not got as fast as they'd liked. He found himself found himself a bit too much ground to make up, and and that was it. It was like a sort of a I'll think of anything kind of thing. He looked terrible. He really did look bad because he sort of sat up about a furlong out, not making any effort. Like he stopped for I'd say about a good 4 or 5 strides. He just didn't move, and then I'm thinking because it would have definitely been placed had he just not stopped a furlong out. But
it'd be interesting to see what the owners group sent out to their syndicate members, on the morning of the race. What kind of performance they were expecting. If anyone is a member, that'd be interesting if they could DM us or tell us, because I'll be intrigued to know what they're expecting with a 5-2 shot. Obviously that seemed to have an obvious chance. What was the expectation?
Yeah, as I said, we need to replace. I think we said this for a long time about replacing local stewards, with professional people like that are paid a good amount of money because it's a responsible job. People that a bit like VAR, where you just sit in a studio rather than at each race course. You deal with inquiries, you deal with like things like this, to have a more professionally run game of expert race readers. Even ex-time form would do. People that can actually spot like bloody hell. And give them a job to say, right, you're in charge of basically finding connections for dubious efforts. And instead of these, like you said, John, ex-Sanders, pals that end up becoming stewards at a local course, they're absolutely useless. Yeah. I have forgot one topic, so I'll come on to it. It was a good question, actually, from Beakstown on YouTube. Beakstown gives us a lot of stick on YouTube, always slagging us off. But we don't... Yeah, he's a cunt. But anyway, we don't mind that, though, because we give it, so it's fine to give it back to us, as long as you're being reasonable. He's not reasonable, but I don't mind. So Beakstown, you're a cunt, but I'll answer this. Thoughts on most of the Skelton horses being ridden the same way? In contrast to the man he learnt off, just about every runner is never too far off the speed. I feel like you have to factor this in when backing Skelton horses now. They will be giving the ground away from the start. And so what I did, I checked this out, chaps, and I thought it was an interesting question because I didn't realise this either. But Harry Skelton leads the table for dropped out horses. I know he gets Brian Hughes and that get more rides, but he gets a lot of rides. But he leads the table for held up horses. What's interesting as well is he's well down the table, despite how many rides he gets, for prominently led horses. Again, so is Skelton, John, Harry Skelton, the Simcock of the jumps?
I was just going to say, it looks like we've got another Simcock on our hands, doesn't it?
The good old held up ride, I always think covers a lot of things. A, if you're not off, because if you're always holding them up or you're always sort of like riding negatively most of the time, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think like Simcock apparently trains them for longevity. Doesn't want the brains blowing out like the kilt, and maybe that's their modus operandi with the jumpers. Maybe try and keep them as sound as they can by sort of not blowing the brains out early. But I think, John, there's a point where you do get like Simcock, where it becomes like a one-dimensional thing, doesn't it?
Let's be fair, it was like a bloody religion with Simcock, wasn't it?
It's horrible, isn't it? It's when you, for horses to follow for the flat season, John, you'll probably spot. I mean, I think Simcock's been worse than ever with these sort of like non-jiggers in maidens this winter.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I mean, it's which ones.
Well, and the problem is, then he turns up at Windsor, dropping them out, and it's like you think, oh no, what do I do? You don't know whether to stick a twist. You're on 15, John. Dealer's got a 6 or a 7, and it's like you're thinking, what do I do here? It's a tight call.
You feel as though you must have a bet because it might be August before he takes the fuckers in Lancaster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no right. These are the stats. So and I think answer to Beakstown. So what you do is, if you like backing a lot of Skelton horses because you think they're well handicapped at times, which I do. I often see a lot of Dan Skeltons that seem well in. only back them at tracks where it's good for hold-up runners, as in Simcock, Doncaster, Yarmouth, Ascot. He makes Quinton fortunes at those tracks, held up. But then don't back him at places like Northern Gaffs or like Beverley, and stuff like that, because they're going to be dropped out. It's not good. That's why the kilt has so much success at the likes of Beverley, Catterick, things like that, where you get loose on the front end, and that's it. John knows the game. John's been making money for years out of the kilt, even though he hates him. Just waiting for them.
I might dislike the fella, but I'm not adverse to making £1 or two on his Beverley runners.
Absolutely. Right. Hope you enjoyed that show, folks. We're back on Friday, as normal, discussing the weekend's fair. It's the Dublin Racing Festival this week. We'll have to get some decent panellists in if we can. Andy Richmond, I think.
Yeah, as ran in.
As it could be. I have to have a think about this one. We need some good pundits, don't we? So it's Dublin Racing Festival. And then, as always, myself, John and Chris back on Sunday to moan, groan, slag off, and basically take the piss. That's all from us. Bye for now.